G'day guys, DYLIEDOG here. I'd like to talk you back to the channel. So guys, in today's video, firstly we'll be taking a look at the new Gibraltar Heirloom animations, and secondly we'll be discussing the backlash from pros regarding the new patch notes coming with the Fight Night collection event. So guys, let's get into it. So one of the big draw cards when it comes to purchasing an heirloom for a particular legend are all the animation. Now I did purchase the most recent heirloom for a legend, which was for Caustic, and Caustic's heirloom had 5 animations. So it is safe to say that Gibby's heirloom will have at least 5 animations as well. Now in the recent dev stream, there were 3 heirloom animations which were shown off. Now I don't think these are all the animations, so guys, let's take a look at the 3 animations that were shown in the recent dev stream. So here is the most common animation that you'll get, which is pretty normal, where Gibraltar just holds up the heirloom out in front of himself and inspects it. So the second animation shown for Gibraltar's heirloom is him wielding his heirloom in front of himself, and at the end you can see the animation when he tries to strike an enemy. Now I think this is the rarest animation that you'll get for Gibraltar's heirloom, where he pulls out his gun shield to inspect. And the awesome part about this animation is whatever skin you're running on Gibraltar, his gun shield design will match the gun shield. Now this animation is really unique for an heirloom because no other heirloom animation changes depending on the skin, which I think is really unique and really awesome for Gibraltar's heirloom. Now in a previous video of mine I did rank every heirloom. Now if you want my opinion on the Gibraltar heirloom, I'd have to rank this heirloom at number 5. Between Pathfinder's gloves and Mirage's trophy. Now I don't mind the design, and the gun shield animation is probably one of my favourite animations for any Legend's heirloom, but I think it's way too small for a Legend as big as Gibraltar. I was really hoping that Gibraltar would get the club that he uses in one of his finishes, but in my opinion this is definitely not a bad heirloom. Alright guys, before we get into the drama between the Apex pros and the Apex devs about the recent patch notes, I'll quickly mention that as a Caustic main, I'm actually against the buff to Caustic, and at the end of this video I'll give you my reasonings behind why, but firstly I'll give you guys some context into the huge backlash this latest Caustic buff has received from big pro players. So with the recent patch notes I went over in a previous video, there was one big buff that majority of the Apex community were fuming over, and that was the recent buff to Caustic's gas traps. Now his gas traps regen every 20 seconds instead of every 25. This may not sound like a big buff on paper, but the pro community are absolutely fuming over this buff to Caustic. Now from my understanding, it doesn't seem like the backlash is about the buff itself, but more about the fact that Caustic is getting a buff in the first place. With so many pros and content creators coming out on Twitter and giving their feedback on the latest patch. For example, Mookie Sniper, in regards to the Caustic drama that's currently unfolding, I hate Caustic and think he should never have been in the game, but we are in a bubble. Content creators and pro players make a tiny minority of players. Yes, our feedback is often overlooked. Sonic the Ledgepog posted, I swear Play Apex introduced stupid buffs and nerfs like Caustic to get a reaction to use as a marketing strategy. The moment they announce changes, we all take to social media and advertise their game for free. Any publicity is good publicity. We've been bamboozled. NRG Rocker, MFS have a 0.7 average KD and gold with Caustic, so the devs think they're trash. This is a game we play competitively. Afflictions posted, I'm gonna say it, maybe the win rate for Caustic on Play Apex is low because a lot of not so great players main him. Quake VX wrote, bro, this is the lead game designer at Respawn saying that Caustic is the weakest character, we're doomed. Diego Swords wrote, Caustic isn't the weakest legend, it's just the weakest players choose to play Caustic. Bad players need a crutch, Caustic gives that crutch, so they can get a few kills, more time in the game they would otherwise never have gotten. His statistics are probably heavily skewed. So a lot of people aren't very happy about this new buff to Caustic, but now we'll get to the biggest argument which came out of this whole Caustic drama, which was between the lead game designer at Respawn and Daniel Klein, and a big pro player and TSM member in Imperial How. So the conversation started when Daniel Klein was responded to someone else's post talking about a possible Gibraltar nerf to his gun shield. But once the conversation moved on to the latest Caustic buff, Imperial How responded with this gif.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So then Daniel Klein responded by saying, oh, this is why I'm getting flooded with notifications on the last day of vacation. Thanks, Hal. Hal responded with, you were flooded before I showed up, pretty sure. Daniel, I was getting a trickle when I went to bed with 10 notifications, woke up with around 200. You have a large audience. I know it sucks, but you want to be responsible. You got to think what your fans will do before you post. Great power equals great responsibility. Hal, look at the timestamps of every response that was made on your tweet. I'm literally one of the last people to make a comment on your tweet. I also don't disagree that I have a large fan base, etc., but simply put a video screaming no. And one more thing, if anybody gets slammed off of me speaking one word like no to a tweet, then I might as well not exist. Which Daniel responded by saying, this is you refusing to take responsibility. I can't tell you how to wield your influence, but if you honestly think in 2020, someone with nearly 100,000 followers can't cause harm by simply chiming into a controversial topic, I don't know what to tell you. To be honest guys, I feel a bit like Keemstar looking into all this drama, but I think I have to take Hal's side here. I think Hal's first response wasn't that big of a deal, but when Daniel responded by saying you have to take responsibility of your whole community because of one tweet is pretty laughable in my opinion. Now I'm not saying that House fans should be able to say anything threatening to Daniel by any means, but for Daniel Klein to suggest that Hal has to take responsibility for every everyone in his community is quite laughable. Now, when Respawn thought of giving a buff to Caustic, they surely must have thought that some of the community would not be happy with him getting another buff ahead of some other legends like Octane or Mirage. Now, before I end the video, I did want to give my thoughts on the Caustic buff, because as a Caustic main, I think I have a pretty good perspective on the matter at hand. Now, this may be a bit of a surprise to a lot of people, but I actually think Caustic did not need another buff. Now, I know his so-called stats suggest that he's a weak legend, but I seriously think that Caustic is a top tier legend before this buff. Now, no, I don't think Caustic is overpowered, but I do believe that if you play him well, he can be played as a very well-rounded legend, not only as a defensive legend, but also offensively. So bottom line, as a Caustic main, I don't think he deserved the buff. Now, yes, this may not sound like the biggest buff in the world, but the fact that Caustic even got a buff in the first place is pretty ridiculous. And if Daniel seriously thinks that Caustic is a weak legend, then well, maybe he doesn't actually play Apex enough. Alright guys, that is all the information I have for you in this video. So guys, before I go, I'd like to remind you to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to click the subscribe button with the notification bell turned on, as I post 3 to 4 videos a week of Apex Legends gameplay, and also covering leaks, rumors, and information about Apex Legends. But anyway guys, DYLIEDOG will catch us all later.